Hello, welcome to Eden Hope Academy. I am Kim Glanowski, the founder of Eden Hope Academy, and I am so delighted that you joined us for this online information meeting. Welcome, and I cannot wait to tell you how your child's life will be transformed into an independent, wisdom-filled thinker through this program. So let's get started. First of all, Eden Hope's philosophy is that your child will learn to think first and then come to class prepared. And that's where we start our first week. So before your child comes to class, they will do memory verses. There are 4 of them each week. There's a Bible verse, history, geography, and science. And they're all set to music on our fun CDs, and you'll be playing them in the car and listening to them and learning so much yourself. A lot of programs in there. Memorize and that's it, but not us. That's our starting point. We feel like memory is the beginning of learning. It's what you're going to apply, but each week we build on how to think and not just pouring into our children. And that is what differentiates Eden Hope Academy from all other programs. So your child will also complete their activity book each week before they come to class. We have a large book that your child can get fully into, and it's 1 full page each week. So we'll do Bible, and we'll talk to them about the Bible verse, and then they will draw their own Bible picture. And why do we have you draw a picture? Well, it's because when you draw it, you have to think more deeply. You have to reason. You have to think of what it was that you're depicting. You just have to think so much more deeply about it. And then they do the same thing for history, where we read the verse that they're going to memorize or they have memorized, and then they draw a picture. And then we have a hero highlight each week. Now, hero highlights are to get your child interested in people who have done great things. So, for example, we might talk about Corrie ten Boom, and she hid Jewish people during World War II in the Netherlands. And so when we talk about her, we might apply her to the Bible verse. We might apply her to what was happening in Germany and throughout Europe during that time, during the time of World War II. And then we'll talk about what she did the rest of her life and how she used her experiences to glorify God. So our hero highlights are some of our most important parts because your child will be thinking differently about heroes. On this side, we've got these great pictures and that we discussed during our videos, and then they have a final science picture to draw and a geography where they just put a dot on it, but we discuss where the activities are taking place in the world. And finally, each week your children will do 3 timeline cards. Now, we've done the timeline card method where someone else has done them and we just go through them a million times, and children can usually say them, and about a year later they forget them. So that's where we started doing our own timeline cards. So each week there are 3 timeline cards that your child will do, and the timeline cards help your child to really take ownership of the information by drawing a picture, and then on the back they do 3 sentences or even 1 or 2 sentences about the topic, and moms can write these in for little guys. And then they have this natural language processing technique back here. And they're dots that link items together. So here we have Winston Churchill, who's linked to World War II and the Battle of Dunkirk, the Blitz of Britain, and radio. So each child will fill in these differently, and they will not do all of the circles because we're going to do some of the circles in class. So it's just a few to remind your child about the card, about the topic. So these are great. Your child will have a full book of them by the end of the year. They'll have about 74 of them by the end of the year, and it's something that you will treasure. It's something that you will always keep because your child will be so proud of their work on their timeline cards. So that's it for each week before you come to class, and it takes about 2 hours plus to do the workbook and the timeline cards and the memory. And we suggest that you do the memory work while the children are playing with their Legos or in the car, or find fun activities like maybe drawing for them to do while they're listening to their memory songs. Next, once each week they get to come to group time, and they are going to love group time. Group time is where students meet at 9 o'clock each morning until 1 o'clock. And when they come, they go to check-in. And check-in is to get their stamps. If they're on time, they get one stamp. If they've completed their book, they get another. They get stamps for each memory verse that they have memorized and each timeline card that they have done. And then several times throughout the year, we have Market Day, where for each stamp they get an EHA dollar and they get to buy and sell items during Market Day with their money, with their EHA money. So they get their stamps and then they go into opening where we sing 3 a cappella songs, we pray, and we do a short Spanish. After that, it is 9:30 and it's time to start our day. So at Eden Hope Academy, our teachers teach just one class each week. So they might teach art for 4 classes, or science for 4 classes, or ukulele and dance for 4 classes. That way our students are going from classroom to classroom to classroom in their groups, and it helps their brains to get readjusted between classes, and they're never sitting for more than 35 minutes. All right, so what do we do first? We have 4 classes generally in each group. Our oldest children will go to critical thinking skills first. Now in critical thinking skills, we have the green dot. Now the green dot is supposed to be like a TED Talk dot, and it's to encourage our students to be a true presenter, to be able to really capture his or her audience. And the person who's on the dot is the one who's leading. And so they'll stand up and they'll say, I'm going to talk to you today about Winston Churchill. Now, your child will not go into when the person was born and when they died and then all of the dry facts about them. That is not what Eden Hope Academy is about at all. What we're about is capturing the moment in history, or capturing the person's essence so that we can discuss it. So here my son drew a bathtub to talk about Winston Churchill. You might think, why a bathtub? But what he would probably present on with this card is that Winston Churchill was the Prime Minister of England during and before World War II, and he also fought for the British in World War I, and when he fought, he would bring his bathtub with him, and it was a copper bathtub that had a little heater that went with it. And so as he's talking to his fellow students about this person in the bathtub, he might be telling them that Winston Churchill had such a sense that he would be protected until God was ready to take him, but that he didn't worry. He wasn't overcome with fear or fright. And so he might relate that to someone in the Bible. And so on the back of here, he says Dunkirk. And so he might say, something, Winston Churchill had such a force about him that when people said something that couldn't be done, Winston Churchill would just do it. So at the Battle of Dunkirk, you had 300,000 men stranded on the beach of France, and they could not get anywhere, and they were most likely going to die by the German forces within a few days. And Winston Churchill was told, there's no way we can rescue all of these men. And so what did he do? He got on the radio in the middle of the night, and he said, go out, if you have a boat at all, go out and rescue those men. And so sure enough, the people from Britain rallied, and they got into their boats, and they went, and they rescued almost every one of those men on that beach and saved their lives. And so Bo might be telling the fellow students about just this one aspect and relating it to the bathtub. And then when he's finished with that, he might say, does anyone have anything to add on or any questions or comments? And so then his fellow students will start adding on to the conversation about Winston Churchill, kind of within the framework of what Bo has already set up. So someone else might say, well, I learned that he fought during the Boer Wars in South Africa. And they might say something about how he jumped off of a train and he was able to escape. Or someone else might say during the Battle of Britain, he was extremely brave and describe the Battle of Britain. And so what this does is it starts a conversation with the person on the green circle, the leader of the conversation, leading it. So he might say, oh, well, Nathan, do you have something to add? And then Nathan will add. And then he'll say, great job, Nathan. And then does this child want to add? And they are leading that discussion. And this is powerful for your child because it teaches them how to be an authority in front of a group. It teaches them how to direct a conversation. It teaches them how to encourage other people in an authority role. And the facilitator, the teacher, is there to just keep everyone on track and make sure everyone is being kind to each other. But her job is to sit there and just encourage, not to add that much, just to encourage, or to maybe throw in another topic like, can you relate Winston Churchill to someone in the Bible? Or who would you link him to? Could you perhaps link him to Ronald Reagan or someone like that? So that is the core of our critical thinking class, that our children are leading it, and that they're learning to speak in front of a group, and they're learning to lead. And even our little guys can do this. So I'll put up some videos later of our 5 and 6-year-olds doing this, and you will be shocked at what a great job they do. All right, so next in critical thinking skills class, we divide into teams and we have our Linkit cards. Now these are our Linkit cards for cycle 5. Eden Hope Academy has 5 cycles, and as you can see, there are about 300 of these cards. So there are quite a few of these cards. And the purpose of Linkit cards is to rip history out of the textbooks. We don't want our children to just memorize history and have a list and be able to say, oh, well, you know, the Revolutionary War was fought with George Washington. No, we want them to understand why. So, for example, in Cycle 4, when we're talking about the Revolutionary War, we might ask the students to build a bridge using these cards to explain how the Age of Enlightenment and the First Great Awakening affected 4 different wars. Now, our students can do that, and they can do that easily, and they might even put out 100 cards to say this story. So they might say that the Age of Enlightenment was much more European, so we'd put European, and then we might put French because it was predominantly in France, and we might say that Thomas Jefferson spoke with John Locke, so that's 2 more links, and that he included some of John Locke's words in our Declaration of Independence, so that's another link, and then we might say that George Washington, who fought for King George in the French and Indian War, so that's 1, 2, 3 more links, that goes down here, he knew Thomas Jefferson, and they fought together, so that would bridge French and Indian War to American Revolutionary War. And then we could say that the French helped us during the Revolutionary War, and then we could talk about the key players of each war, some of the battles, and then we could go to the French Revolution and maybe to the War of 1812. So we just did it. So it's pretty fantastic how our students can take the nuggets of information that they learn, put them together in different manners, and come up with a complete story. Now this is a loud time. It is filled with a lot of yelling. There's high emotion, high tension as they're going, and they're trying to put these cards onto the floor so that they can tell a story about something that the facilitator has asked them. So it's amazing resource that the children have, and they beg to play this game. And at the end of the year, we have an end of the year time with our dads and our moms and all of our students, and so we challenge moms and dads to play this game. And let me tell you, most of the time the kids can make more links than the parents because they have learned so much at Eden Hope Academy. After critical thinking skills, which is about 35 to 40 minutes, our children go on to science. Now remember, each class is going in a circle, so the ones who are in science might go to art, and the ones in critical thinking go to science, like that. And they just and dissect something. So it's always something that helps them to relate back to the era. We might explode rockets and cycle all of the little bitty, the parts that need to be done, like the circuits where you have to buy specific things. We do those at Eden Hope Academy because it alleviates moms from having to do them at home. At Eden Hope Academy, art always relates to our topics. So if we're learning